The Prepped Adelaide Marathon is on again. Register now for the Prepped Marathon, Half Marathon, or the family-friendly Saucony 10K or 5K event. Seize your personal best with Prepped and get ready for the 45th Adelaide Marathon, Sunday, August 27. Register at adelaidemarathon.com.au.
Being a skin can bring us so much pain. Now I hear you say you got the best of both ways. I want you to come and take a walk in my shoes and tell me if you take my place. Undercover of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking.
All right, welcome to July edition 2023 of Shoe Geeks, brought to you by the Inside Running Podcast. I am joined here by Michael Nishke from Adelaide, who is the barefoot podiatrist. He's best known over there. Nitta, welcome.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here, chatting to you blokes again.
Talk us through the barefoot podiatrist, just quickly. Just summarise in 3 or 4 sentences.
Look, I registered that as my company name back in 2007 or 2008 when I first started practice, and no one hadn't had the name. There's 3 names I really wanted, and all had been registered. And I thought, I'll just go with that. And that was my clinic name in Loxton and in Adelaide for about a decade.
Did you just jump on the bandwagon?
The timing of it was perfect. I feel like I did it just prior to the Lieberman study and just prior to all the second metatarsal stress fractures in the Vibram. The timing was actually pretty, I was saying my first year in clinic in Adelaide, I saw 22 second metatarsal stress fractures, second or third metatarsal stress fractures.
Was that after you recommended barefoot running?
No, well, that's the thing. So a lot of people came in wondering why they couldn't solve the puzzle with wearing the shoes. So, people running 50, 60 Ks a week, just changing shoes exactly from 100% to a traditional shoe to a Vibram. So not much you can do with met stress either. You need a bit of time.
All right. Well, Tom, have you ever been a barefoot podiatrist, Tom?
No, I can't say. It's always one of those things that confuses me. Being a barefoot podiatrist.
You're from Sydney, which is pretty easy to tell.
Your favorite city?
Yeah, very Sydney type personality. You're a, what is it called? Pinnacle, as in like you're the best of podiatry in Sydney.
Well, some may say that.
Well, you've said that. You called your business that.
What's worse, calling yourself the best or a barefooted podiatrist? What's worse?
Well, both are money grabs.
Mine's not anymore.
No. All right. So why don't we chat about what you've sort of been up to just quickly, Tom? You actually raced yesterday, which was good to see because you've been struggling so much.
Yeah, it was good to be. I was glad. Gary asked me if I wanted to pace one of the kids, Cam Gorman, from the group, like a week out, and I thought it was a good way just to get a hit out. I'll see how long I can, just like a barometer of where I'm at, really.
What race?
It's always a bit of event. Huh?
You didn't say what race.
Oh, sorry. So Sydney Harbour 10. So that was on this weekend. So yeah, it's a 10K all through, starting at the rocks in the city there, and just runs through like out to Darling Harbour, through Barangaroo, and back into the rocks again. So it's all right through the city. And yeah, Nitta had his boy in there. Kale came up for it. So my job was to try and help those 2 boys out. Hopefully.
So what pace were they aiming for, or what time?
So sub 30, basically. Okay. So my job was to go out 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 min Ks, 3 min Ks, see how far I could go at that. And then, 3 And so good going for these young guys. So they're both 17, right? Cal's 17 or?
Yeah, Cal's just turned 18. Yep.
Okay.
So at 2K, I think you were at 29:15 pace. Maybe cooked it a little, if I look at the Strava correctly.
I don't know.
I don't know if you used the GPS in Sydney. I reckon I ran that Harbour 10K maybe 5 years ago, and it gave me like a 2:31 first K.
There we go. Thanks, Nitta. I was just about to say that. He's saving me there. Thanks, mate. I was dead on, mate. Dead on. Trust me.
All right. So what shoes? Like, talk us through. How did you decide on what shoe to wear?
So I got a pair of the Vaporfly 3s earlier in the year to do Hamburg Marathon, which never happened. So they've been sitting there waiting, and I've been wanting to wear them. So obviously that was the shoe that I brought out for the 10. And being a bit of a twisty-turny course, I think it was nice having a super shoe that, isn't quite as big and bulky and unstable as maybe some of the others. I don't get along with them anyway, but particularly on that course, like it just felt nice. It was agile, very cushioned. I think we mentioned it before, but it just feels the forefoot has more guts to it and it's softer. So it just feels like it's a more lively experience in the forefoot compared to version 2. Part of that's the rocker, part of it's just the foam feels more compliant. Can't complain. I just enjoyed the whole event. I enjoyed out there. I enjoyed the shoes. It was, they were good. A big tick from me.
Do you feel like the rear foot's more stable as well?
Potentially. I don't think I never really had any instability issues with any of the models. So to me, I'm not very sensitive to that. But I've definitely heard other people say that they found that version 2. Version 3 is more stable in the rear foot. Yeah.
Something that I find for sure, like big part of why I love it so much, is that, I don't know, just confidence I've got through the back of the shoe now.
Why do you reckon it is? Because it's not really that much broader. Is it just, it's literally probably a few mil wider. So it's interesting that it feels more stable.
I don't know exactly either, but I feel it there. I feel a little resistance underfoot. Like
you know what I felt with it? It feels as well that the plate is a little bit stiffer. So potentially the stiffer plate is doing something as well with stability.
Yeah, maybe it widens at the back a little more. Again, I don't know. Like closer to
is the surface area much different to number 2? Is it much wider?
Nah, not really.
No.
Maybe a little bit.
It probably is a little bit. Like it's literally millimeters we're talking about. It's not. Yeah, it's not. Not heaps. But the thing is, like, it's more stable, yet it's no heavier. I think if anything, it's lighter. Which a lot of the time when you try and get more stability in a shoe, they're adding material and it's getting a little bit heavier. But it's just as light as ever, which is nice.
It could be the best update to a super shoe that we've ever seen in that whole kind of super shoe category. I was astounded with how different it is and how good it feels. Like, to me, it's the best super shoe I've ever put on now. And I'm glad
you're finally on board with it. Yeah.
Well, at the start, like, I was a little unsure. It didn't look like there was much change at all, but it's significantly different underfoot, like a different shoe to me.
I got to get on it. I went with the Alpha 2 instead. I didn't want to wait the extra week for the Vaporfly 3. Now I'm regretting it.
Well, get another, like, get a pair. Yeah. Surely Barefoot Podiatry can fork out for that.
It's his life. What are the mileage shoes you've been running in, Tommy? I know you haven't done a lot of volume. Like, a bit of a Tommy appreciation post. You had 30-50 yesterday, mate, and you haven't done much compared to what you normally do.
Yeah, I know. I reckon I really had no idea because my training's been very interrupted. I was building nicely, then I had like life stress and work stress, and then, like, I don't know if I told you guys, but Leo.
You had 2 imaginary stress fractures along the way as well, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had those phantom bone stress injuries, and then, like, the last week, I wasn't even sure I was going to race on the weekend because Leo, my eldest, he's been in hospital like all last week with this it's kind of like appendicitis, but it's the lymph nodes all around the abdomen, like near the appendix. But the pain is like appendicitis type pain, and he didn't eat. He didn't eat for 4 days, and he's just like it was a nightmare. So like, yeah.
How old is Leo again? Is Leo about 4 or is he 5?
Leo's 6. He's 6.
6, yeah.
Yeah. So it was a rough week. He came good on Friday or Saturday, I think. I think Friday was his last day in hospital, and he just turned a corner massively on Saturday. And so I think I only got like 2 runs in last week. So I think what it was I was super fresh. I was just like, I hadn't had much sleep, but I had no my legs weren't heavy from any training at all this week. So felt pretty good actually. Felt pretty good out there.
You'd want to be doing the home city marathon in September?
Yeah, maybe. Mate, what do you reckon? You write me a program, get me fit for 8 weeks?
Nitta would love that. We'd have to get you in some long runs real quick.
Yeah. Look, Tom wouldn't be far off his PB in 8 weeks, I don't reckon. Gary,
I spoke to Gary. Lana messaged Gary after the race, and she was like, Gary, can you get Tom fit for Sydney? Because I did tell her about the prize money, Moose, and I said,
Lana's
I
your
think we've got to take some money off this bloke. He thinks he's going in for an easy payday.
Who?
You. Me?
No, I won't trouble. I'm not going to trouble the prize money. You're going to have to beat Brett Robinson, though. He's a 2.7 guy.
We've been close before.
Almost got him in Melbourne.
So easy runs, Tom. What are you wearing?
All right. I'll whip out this. I've been copying it a bit for this guy lately from some run crewers. Because a lot of run crewers don't wear these, apparently.
Yeah. They need to try this one. It's different.
Yeah. So this is the Sky 7. I don't know if I tried the 6. I think I had the 5. But I would say I was pleasantly surprised with this shoe. So when I first tried it on, I was a little bit underwhelmed. And then off the back of Mike saying, this actually feels pretty good, I took it out for a few runs, and I was actually quite surprised. It's got some good, like a really good amount of cush underneath you. So I think I had a look at it. The stack is, what's my phone? The stack is 41.33. So it's a relatively, it's their high stack sort of daily training model. They're using that Energy foam, which is that sort of soft, resilient stuff that they've put in there. And I don't know whether it is a little bit higher, but maybe they've used more of that Energy stuff. But it just feels bouncier, maybe a little bit softer, but definitely bouncier than previous iterations. And I think the bounciness adds to the fact it doesn't actually feel as brick-like on the foot as it does, like holding a shoe. It feels a bit like I don't know, it just feels heavy. But once I got rolling in it, it felt pretty good. I did a long run in it. What did I do? 20, it wasn't long, but it was like 24K or something. And I enjoyed it. Like it's not a fast, like you're not really going to want to feel like you're going to pick up the pace in it, but it felt, comfy and protective for the duration of that run. It felt pretty good. So for an easy day shoe, it's a great mileage shoe, I would say.
Yeah, and it looks like they've got a slab of rubber on the bottom just to protect the foam, which is rare.
It looks super durable.
Yeah, you're not seeing that very often anymore. So that rubber looks like it'll last a long time.
Yeah, you can see the Energy stuff in here, I think.
Yeah, the red bit in the middle. That is
and pretty
soft,
traditional geometry, so it's not super rocket or anything. But some people like that. I personally like it. I don't really love rocket shoes for easy runs. I'm probably in the minority. I don't know, but I don't mind that traditional geometry. Quite like it.
What shoe do you compare it to?
I don't really.
I found the foam act a bit like the Cloud Monster.
Really?
Yeah, I found that that's the same run that I preferred it for. Like maybe a little bit softer in the Cloud Monster and a little bit lighter. More guts behind the Sky 7, but I found just the resilience of the foam or the bounciness to be semi-similar. So on the forefoot, that is. But yeah, look, I didn't find any other shoe at the moment as much like it as the Cloud Monster.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't really feel like it's like that. To me, it feels a bit softer. Cloud Monster's a very unique feeling shoe. The way those pods compress individually rather than just the foam sort of being a slab of foam. I can't find anything that really feels like the Monster. You probably don't access like the Brooks Glycerin very often, but that's the closest feeling shoe to this one, I reckon. So a higher cushion shoe, but a denser cushion. Not like a Nimbus, which is real spongy, or a Triumph, which is bouncier. This is, to me, feels a lot more like a Glycerin.
I don't think I've worn a Brooks for a decade. I don't reckon. I'm not sure about you, Tom, but I can't remember the last time I had a Brooks.
The Aurora. Don't let him bring it up again.
Mate.
The Aurora.
The Aurora.
Don't forget the Aurora. That was actually
you warmed up in the what was it? That was their tempo shoe, their traditional tempo shoe.
Hyperion Tempo.
Hyperion Tempo. Yeah.
God,
I actually like that shoe.
Yeah, you like the most eclectic shoe.
Look, let's talk about the. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I know you guys saw me posting about it, and you were disgusted, Moose, that I was potentially going to talk it up, but I've only done a couple of runs in it, so I really don't. It's probably not giving it a fair go, but I pretty much can feel straight away that it's not going to be anything I want to be doing much running in, which is upsetting because this particular shoe, I've had such an affinity for it because when I was early 20s, late teens, it was like the shoe that I always went for and I loved. So it's the Nike Pegasus. And it just feels like, I don't know what they're doing with the Pegasus, but I got the Pegasus 40, and I haven't used the Pegasus since the 37s, but it's so firm. It's just such a firm. No, I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me. No, it's at home. Yeah. It's just such a firm ride. It's unbelievably firm.
While we're on that, I asked Julie the other day about the Infinity 4. So just the general Nike mileage shoes right now. The Infinity 4, obviously that was the first version was built to try and, reduce injury risk compared to its competitors or its own line. They ran that paper that never got published. That shoe has been released, I think, this year, and it weighs 355 or 360 grams at size 10. So like Julian called it, obviously it's not a diad, but it feels a bit like a diad. The outsole is really industrial. Nike have not got a volume shoe done correctly or done well since the Vomero 13. No, 12.
Yeah.
12? Yeah.
No, 13 was good still. 13 was good. 14 got a bit shaky. You're right. We're finding it hard work just to get Nike training shoes on people's feet, and there's always something a bit different about it. Like the Vomero 16 had a massive pod under the forefoot, like airbag, and it just used to flatten out, and people would really feel the divot under their forefoot. The structure is not bad. The structure is probably their best jogging shoe, I reckon. And at $200 still, it's an absolute steal compared to some of the other shoes it competes against. Like you got the Adrenaline now at 260 maybe? 250, 260. You've got the Inspires going up to 240 from Mizuno.
You mean the Invincible? No, don't you?
Sorry.
From Mizuno.
The Inspire from Mizuno. Even Kayano's 280. So you've got a structure at $200, and that shoe doesn't feel bad at all. That's like the least it's the least offensive Nike training shoe because there's always something about it to me that's wrong. Like the new Invincible, the fit's awful. I can't get that right. The Pegasus, like you said, it feels like a shoe that's been left behind. It feels like it's ancient. It feels like you're putting on a shoe that you're trying in store 10 years ago. And even then, it wouldn't be a soft shoe. The Vomero, the 17 comes out. I've got pretty high hopes for that. That comes out.
When does that come out?
I'm pretty sure it's September. Let me just double check.
So I got to have a look at the Vomero 17 when I did a thing for Nike the other week, and it looks really good. No airbag. Good. So you just said about the airbag, they've removed the airbag, layer of Zoom X closest to the foot, and then a layer of the Cushlon closer to the ground. I reckon it's going to be really good.
October.
That's good. October, nice.
We've had a few people run in it. They've sort of commented that it's not as maybe thick or as spongy under the forefoot as they would have liked, and I think that's the Zoom X just compressing. You need a lot of Zoom X to make it work. And new structure comes out as well. It's like a little bit more aggressive in terms of the support, sort of like the geometry, going to when I say aggressive, I mean more supportive type feel. So
like wider surface area or what?
Wider surface area, yeah, like going the way of the ASICS sort of support shoes.
That's interesting. I don't know what you like, Tom, but it's been hard to refer, put a Pegasus on a shoe list for a patient for the past few years, a Vimero for the past few years. I definitely have sent off for a couple of structures in comparison to other shoes. I didn't realize how cheap it was in comparison to its competitors. It makes a bit of sense as to why that probably sells a bit more, but it's time for a mileage shoe to. I mean, they obviously sell enough shoes. Nike sell a lot of shoes. It's not a big problem for them, more than likely. But for people, running and daily trainers, they used to be the number one for that. Between them and Adidas, I'd argue that between the three of us chatting here, we probably use it the least for our daily trainer.
Oh, I don't really run in any Nike. I run in their trail shoe, the Zagama. That's what I run in. Ultrafly, actually, the plated trail shoe comes out in August, so that'll be interesting. But Vimero 17 does look. I don't think you'll like it, Nitta. Like just straight off the bat. Like I don't think it's got enough under the forefoot for you. Tom probably love it, I reckon.
Yeah, I want a shoe like a little, just very similar to the Epic React, but maybe a touch more under it. That would be good. Which it might be.
Yeah.
Oh, don't know. I don't know about that. I think you're going to find it pretty thin up there. But the Peg Turbo, that shoe was thin, like the first and second version, and people love that thinness up there.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that weighed, but that was so light.
It was light. It was light.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know we've all been running in the next one, the Kayano 30. So, Kayano 30 is one that came out in July, early July, and massive change from Kayanos of the past. So, initially you can see, this thing has a beast of a midsole, high stack, real quite stiff. I mean, I've got a bit of flex in it now. I wear this to work every day, so I'm starting to get a bit of flex in it. Big, broad profile underneath, like Hoka-like shoe. I tell a lot of people just in store now, you can, if you put a Hoka logo on this, no one's batting an eyelid because of the geometry of it and the, pretty much the concept of it too. So it's a support shoe still. You got the specs on it there, Nitta?
Yeah, look, it's for my size 10, it weighed in at about 318 grams, so pretty standard, I'd say. It feels a bit lighter on the foot than that, I think, compared to previous models. And the forefoot's 30 mils and the back is 40 mils, so a 10 mil drop on this shoe. I mean, the big change is, of course, the surface area beneath the medial aspect of the foot. They've put this nice soft foam under the medial aspect of the foot, the 4D guidance technology. It's almost like telling the population, look, we're doing the exact opposite now to what we used to with the duo density posting in the medial aspect of the foot. But look, in saying that, they've just filled in the foot, so there's more surface area guiding it through the big toe, is my guess. It's stable. This is the best Kayano they've created, would you say? I mean, relative to what you've wanted previously, I think this has been the most enjoyable Kayano I've put my foot in. I guess I've only compared it through to the Nimbus, which I got a couple months earlier. The Nimbus runs at 33.5 and 41.5, so a bit more in the forefoot. That 3 or 4 mils more in the forefoot. And both surface area of the Nimbus is really wide, but not as wide as the Kayano. The first thing that came to mind with this shoe when I first put it on was, nice and light. Doesn't feel too far removed from the Nimbus, except for the forefoot did feel a bit less in it. So I could feel that we run up on the Bel Air train lines. I could feel just the rocks under the forefoot a bit more. I couldn't feel under the heel. The heel is well cushioned and well supportive. Very, very stable shoe. It did feel a lot like a slightly more beefed up Kayano Light to me when I first whacked it on. And especially after 20 minutes, it felt more like a Kayano Light than any other shoe comparatively, with more substance in the midsole.
The light sort of range, the Kayano Light and Nimbus Light have been almost like test cases for ASICS, it seems.
Absolutely.
They bring them out sort of a few years earlier than they put the same sort of changes into their flagship shoes just to test the waters, just to get feedback and see how it's taken. The Kayano Light's been great in our store. Like, people have loved to have that stability, but in a lighter package. And in terms of control, like this, to me, this shoe here is one of the most controlling shoes that I've put on before.
Yeah.
And it's just, people say, oh, why? What is it? Is it just because it's wide underfoot? It's not just because it's wide. It's because of all these articulations in the sole for me. Like you can see this line that runs down.
The guidance line.
Like, the guidance line, they call it. You can see how stiff the medial platform is over here and how much surface area that has. And then the slither on the lateral side is like the cushion area. And if we're landing sort of in this piece of foam and then transitioning into this big sort of wedge over here, it actually feels really supportive and there's a lot of resistance to my foot pronating. You can see it standing there. So you can feel it standing there too when I put it on. I feel almost like I have very little mobility left because it's almost braced up.
I'm assuming this guy flexes up a little bit after time, though. I'm assuming after 100 or 200 Ks, the forefoot gets much more flexible. At baseline, it feels a bit stiffer, but I found after 40, 50 minutes of running, it felt like a lot less shoe for me. So it's nice and light and still nimble for a high volume trainer. I mean, ASICs have moved all that way. That testing range with the ASICs Nimbus Light and the Carina Light definitely has led to these particular shoes. And while I've got it, I mean, Tom, you've run it a bit more than I have. I've run it in it twice, but look, just show that base of that midsole again, Julian. And look at the similarities here. And this is the GT 2012 version that gets released in about September, I believe. They've gone down the same pathway of, really good surface area, wedging the medial side a touch more than the right side with more rubber under the foam, wide surface area. A couple higher points of durometer, so not quite as soft in the foam and the base of the foot, and maybe probably a bit less stacked, more than likely. But look, you love these sort of shoes, don't you, Tom?
Yeah, that new GT 2000 feels to me closest to the Kayano Light. Maybe even a touch softer than Kayano Light even, which actually feels pretty good. They've done well. They've done well. I like what they've done with the Light series and testing out that new technology before they've put it in their flagship stuff. And you can see like that geometry change with that lateral decoupling and the wedging medially is exactly what they did in the Kayano Light. It's probably why it feels so similar.
It works.
That
does really
works.
well. And easier to sell now, like Julian, I'm assuming. Like looking at these shoes comparatively next to each other, they put it on a foot. I'm assuming we're going to go back up in sales compared to the last couple of years where they probably haven't sold as well next to their competitors.
Yeah, they just feel softer. And there's a real trend for soft at the moment. And it's hard to put soft shoes on people's feet and then put something firm back on and ask them if it's comfortable or not, because softness is such a treat almost. And for someone who requires support to have this type level of softness, you're not really seeing that outside like a Gaviota or something from Hoka. It's kind of the only real shoe that's done that before.
Yeah.
So we stock it in. We didn't. No, we did actually. We stock it in wide and standard, which is the first time we've done that for Kayano. And it's going well, for both.
Yeah.
So the other release this month was the New Balance Super Comp Trainer V2. So the V2, it's weird because the code on the shoe is MRCXBK3, which indicates it's the third version. But I reckon there's been some mistake along the line because the first version of this got called the V2. And so it's just a bit confusing. Anyway, it is the second version of the Super Comp Trainer, which is like it doesn't really fit a category that existed before 1 or 2 years ago, but it's a plated training shoe or a plated jogging shoe. It's made of super foam though. So this is their fuel cell, but like this foam here feels really poppy, very similar to what's in their race shoe. It sits on a 6 mil drop compared to the 8 mil drop that it used to. It's 40 at the rear foot, 32 at the forefoot. So we've got that sort 34. Of similar. 32. 40, 32. So
it's 8 mil.
That's a mistake. It was supposed to be. This is 6 mil. That's a mistake. I'm not sure. I'm just reading their tech sheet, and I don't think that.
I had a 39.33 from someone of memory, so it was just below the 40 off memory. 39.33 at 6 mil, but not that it makes a big difference when you start compressing foam that's soft. So
I'm just reading off. This is off the New Balance tech sheet. So this is called. So they compare. Like, it's weird, their comparisons. Like,
we know how good tech sheets are.
Oh, it's bad, this one. I don't know who put this together. I won't throw someone under the bus here, but they've compared it to the Saucony Endorphin Elite, which please never do that. They're calling this fuel cell CO2 and nitrogen injected P-Bax foam. So that's the first time I've seen a comment on this fuel cell. Let's talk about it in terms of reality, how it feels. It's definitely less of a therapy-like shoe than the first pair. So, Nitta, you're not going to get that calf Achilles love. There's a bit more flex in this one. It's a little sort of softer to me. It feels closer to the ground. It's because of those things, I enjoy running in it more. So the heel cut's a lot.
Big update. The heel counter looks way better than the first version.
Yeah, it is. So it's just going back to traditional sort of heel cut. It's got this like wing at the back, which a lot of shoes do now. Still quite a thin tongue, which I don't love, but I guess that's a weight saver. It's quite a pointy toe box. So one of the issues that I'm finding, or that I found trying on the 11.5, which I would have liked to wear, is that my foot just came across the medial side here and poked off. And I know Ali, like she said the same thing. It felt a bit too tight up here. Down here is okay. Good width back around sort of the Met head area, but up front, it just tapers off a lot too quickly. And so I had to go up a half size for that. It still has these two big columns through the back, the energy arc sort of set up where it's rocket and it has a plate that's shaped sort of high to low. One thing, like first run out of the box, took it on some dirt roads and it just chews up this foam like nothing else. Yeah. So that's
life though. Like that's all right though.
Yeah, it's just real fragile. I think it will actually chew out pretty bad after, say, 100K if I keep running on the dirt, because that's only 2 runs on the dirt right there.
Well, you saw the photo of my first run when I wore the Supercomp Elite V3. I did the trail park run down here, and it just pulled off the whole rubber bit and chewed a few holes through. So that was one run. Yeah.
You'd be worse, wouldn't you? You'd be worse because of how 4 foot you are. But yeah, no, it's been a fun shoe. I like Super Blast is my go-to when I'm feeling good and I want to run a bit faster on an easy day. Now, Super Blast, I think, can handle a little bit more variance in trail and dirt and stuff. This thing here is going to be a bit more suitable for flatter roads. It's less stable than a Super Blast, mainly because of these 2 big columns that sort of compress exclusive of each other. Or independent of each other, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be because of that. But yeah, I put Super Blast on for the long run just to get me through a longer period on dirt, and I'm glad I did. But this one here for hour runs around town when I'm feeling good, I love it.
How does it compare to the Hoka Mac X?
Well, the Mac X hasn't arrived yet in Australia. Bree's been running in a pair and she adores it. The Mac X looks like it might be a bit more jogging friendly, and this one here could be a bit more up pace. Bree has run in both. They're her thoughts on it. She'd put the Mac X on for a long run and perhaps this one on for a tempo-y type run and feel better about it that way. Nice. And then the other one coming in is the Saucony Kinvara Pro, which is like a lot firmer, stiffer plated trainer, which I think will be more easy days rather than tempo runs. So you can kind of like structure it like that for these new plated training shoes. I'll go next, just one last one. So I've had two cross-country races in this now, which is the Dragonfly cross-country. So the difference between the standard Dragonfly and this one is there's like rubber pads down on the heel. The midsole has sort of like little lugged foam section. And then up front, underneath the spike plate, it is rubber with some little lugs on it. It comes with these 2 types of pins, which I've just this is I think it's about a 9mm pin, the standard, but then they also have this, you can sort of see it there, this stud pin, which I used at Cruden Farm, which was a terrible idea because it's really unstable with these massive big plastic sort of pyramid that doesn't really dig into the ground. So you're sitting off the ground let's say 10 mil, and it was really unstable. Didn't really dig in because it only has this little pin at the top. And then I changed them out for Bandura. I still didn't feel great in this shoe. The overlay's on top, it's a little bit more reinforced through the toe here. Reinforcement through the midfoot. The wrap's a lot stronger. I thought it would feel better than it did. I'm not sure if it's because it's a slightly broader last. It kind of looks like that it almost gets in the way a little bit. When I'm going downhill and when it's really cambered and lumpy, I just want less shoe on my foot. But I've got really sore ankles today. A couple of days after the race, sore tib ant, sore plantar. I just can't. I can't run much cross country without affecting my training for a week after. And this
you have to wear the Ultra Fly for the next one.
Oh, yeah. It might affect the agility, but around the corners. But I've cross country ends now for us. We have one more relay, and it's not that important really. So I'll just put the spikes back, bring them out next year.
Yep. Well, I can't add to that a lot more. The only other shoe that I've worn, which Julian sent through to me a couple of weeks ago, is the On Cloud Spike 10,000, which you've seen a lot of media and hype around it. The 10,000 appears to be the spike a lot of the pros are wearing for their race day scenario as opposed to the 1,500. And I guess what makes it unique is obviously the high stack height. The Cloud Tech foam is super soft. So when I hit the ground in this shoe on the track the other day, it felt very similar to the way the Dragonfly acts, Tom, so you will like it, but it felt like just more. It just felt like there was more stack height. And I actually don't know the stats on this one. I'm assuming the 10,000 is probably legal for the 1,500 meter plus, but maybe not the 800, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So, but this is a really enjoyable spike. The upper is nice and light. It's nimble. If there was one downside to it, I think, as you mentioned, Julian, before, similar around the MPJ, it's actually wide enough, but it does taper in pretty aggressively. So it will irritate people a little bit in terms of the width towards the toe box. Funnily enough, it's got lots of volume. It's really, really high in terms of how much space it is. I'd love to see it just a little bit more anatomical, but a little bit lower streamline. I reckon that'd be a better fit for most people. But look, they'll probably get that feedback, no doubt, because beneath it, the magic in the midsole of this foam is fantastic. So I think this will be a hard shoe to compete against for any shoe from the 1,500 above, really. I think it's a great spike, and we're seeing more of it now. And I haven't tried the 1,500, but I'm hearing that people are using it for shorter workouts more so than actual racing, and the 10,000 is going to be the predominant racing shoe. And this shoe is, I think, look, I haven't weighed them compared to each other as well, but just from the other reviews I've read, it's as light as the Dragonfly, if not a little bit lighter. So 8 or 9 grams lighter.
That's pretty good. Is it PBA foam? Do you know? Is that what they're using?
It's the Cloud Tech. It feels identical to the Zoom X underfoot. So if it's not PBA, it feels like PBA. So my guess is it is PBA.
I'm pretty sure
I'd love to get. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's PBA in both the 1,500, this, and the Echo Boom. I think Echo Boom 3.
Yeah, it's funny. The 1,500 spike is much more flexible than the 10K spike. It's like the plate gives a lot more, which I thought is like the opposite of what you'd want. But I don't run those distances. I don't know. Maybe you do want more flex in the shoe.
It flexes under load, this 10,000 spike, when you're up and running. The foam compresses so quickly that you get into the flex point pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right.
South Australia's premier running event, the Prepped Adelaide Marathon, is on again. The spectator-friendly course starts at the race village in Benitham Park and runs along the beautiful parklands and river torrents. You can register now for the Prepped Marathon, Prepped Half Marathon, or the family-friendly Saucony 10K or 5K event. Enhance your performance with the hydration power of Prepped. Get ready for the 45th Adelaide Marathon, Sunday, August 27, and seize your personal best with Prepped by your side. Register at adelaidemarathon.com.au.
Well, let's move on then. Go to our favourite segment, the Nitta Goes Nuts segment. Now, I can't remember if that's what we called it last time, but I'm going to...
No, I don't know.
I'm going to leave it. Nitta Goes Nuts. Go for it.
All right. Well, look, this one is a bit... I'm pulling these out relative to what happens here clinically. And just the past couple months, I mean, we actually touched on it a while back, and Tom did. There's been a couple of papers published and trying to associate super shoes to injury risk. We talked about the navicular one, which was case study driven. We talk about practitioners even telling patients or telling people to be cautious of these shoes. So the last couple of weeks, I've had people come in recreational, but not just recreational, those who are probably, running their first, second, third, fourth marathon and improving and asking questions about the shoes, saying, I just want to ask about the super shoes. I hear they could injure me. And you think, how do these things happen? And when you've got peer-reviewed articles trying to associate these shoes with injury, it makes sense when it gets published on social media. People sort of see it subtly and think, I might not wear these shoes because their risk of injury is a bit higher. But there are other researchers who don't get quite as much leverage, guys like Wout Hukama, one of the first researchers with the 4%, and Max Paquette, saying there's no convincing data that there's any more risk to these compared to traditional running shoes. And anecdotally, Tom, you'd probably agree, saying we probably see a bit less injury in particularly the lower leg, and maybe we see slightly different changes in where injuries do happen. But what we are definitely seeing with the super shoes, and we're probably not seeing it in papers, but we're seeing it in anecdotes, people are handling more quality of running in these shoes compared to wearing the old racing flats. And then suddenly you don't know if the running shoe is a risk factor for injury, or the fact that people are just running more. They can run more as well, and the absolute running dose that they're doing is the risk of injury that's changing. So we probably need to change the narrative a little bit, because I think these super shoes are a gateway drug to handling more running and enjoying more running. The risk is definitely lower than what the reward is, in my opinion. And look, we might see different types of injuries, but we're definitely not seeing more injuries. So the research of these papers, I don't know how they get funded. It drives me nuts, but it's so far removed from what we see clinically on a weekly basis. It's beyond me. So I want people to understand there is a place for them, but the risk of injury wearing these shoes, there is different risk, but there is not more risk compared to the same time in traditional running shoes or even normal running shoes. So that just drives me nuts, because we just see more of this all the time. And it's usually by people who don't have any interest in, clinically working with runners or runners themselves. So it's probably a bit of a generalization, but it just drives me nuts. I mean, you work with someone who's saying that a lot of the super shoes with curved carbon plates are causing metatarsal injury, Tom, but yet the data would suggest it's probably the opposite. Maybe the plate changes the risk of that, but yeah, don't know about creating fear related to these super shoes is probably the right way to go, especially when they probably help us run more. So if you take running injuries per 1,000 hours of exposure, which is probably a good measure of injury, you're probably seeing less now than what we were previously, because people are getting closer to more volume because they can wear a shoe that allows them to perceptually handle more volume. That's my rant.
Mate. Good rant.
Good rant. Bit niche, bit nerdy. I'd rather you go.
People get it though. But there'll be someone listening to this who's been put off of super shoes for some reason or other. And it's worse when it comes from practitioners, and other practitioners say, no, don't wear these, your risk of injury is higher. It just off a once off seeing an article that was 5 case reviews and, poorly done study, and someone's making a living off this study.
Is their risk of injury higher compared to if they just kept running in their Brooks Ghost and didn't put the super shoe on?
Don't know. I mean, that's what needs to probably be compared, is exposure time to all different types of shoes, right? And injury risk. My guess is there's probably different ailments that will happen. In 2019, we saw heaps of sacral stress fractures, neck of femurs, and proximal femoral stress. People can hit the ground harder in these shoes. and they can run downhill faster in these shoes with less perceptual consequence. Of course, there's probably more risk of those types of injuries. But I don't know about you, Tom, but I've definitely seen a few less metatarsals, a few less foot tarsal bone injuries since the advent of carbon fiber shoes. Maybe a few more medial and lateral, no more than wearing traditional flats. I think comparing traditional flats and the super shoes is probably the way to go for exposure time. Unless people are jogging in these shoes compared to a Brooks Ghost. Different types of injuries, probably, Julian, not more or less.
All right, good. Well done. All right, next segment, iconic shoes from the past. Favorite section. You boys always go the fast ones, so I'm going to start off here. The first pair of Hokas that I ever wore, the Hoka Stinson ATR 3. So these things were full chonky, massive stack. They were really rigid. They had like a light traily type outer sole, but it was still soft enough you could run on the road. They were really rocket and they were really soft. And I still think if you made this shoe today, you'd be able to sell it to pretty much anyone who wants that Hoka feel. Like this was the iconic Hoka feel, the iconic Hoka geometry. It gave people stiffness and it unloaded the foot and ankle better than any other Hoka that I've had since then. And it was really comfortable. Like that foam was amazing.
It didn't go wide though, did it? Was that the one limitation? It didn't go wide? Was that it?
No, they never did width back then. They only ever had one width for all their models. So there was no wide Bondi, no wide Stinson. And they still don't do a wide Stinson. They just do one width. And it's relatively
Are you looking at the photo of this shoe, Tom?
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty. And none of their shoes were. They used to have
just as ugly as the original Bondi.
Yeah. These guys, before they got bought out, they used to put together the worst uppers ever. It was like all their money got spent on the midsole, and the upper just got like the cheapest shit left in the factory after all the other brands discarded their stuff. And it looks like that. And it always felt like that too. They would always disintegrate and they would cause blistering, and they were like had seams in the wrong spot, and they would tear and like where the seam joins the mesh, and they were terrible, the uppers, but geez, they were good underfoot.
So how does that original compare to now?
Well, now is still good. Now is like So now the current one is still super rigid, and it's probably not as soft, but it's their stiffest shoe, and it's still the shoe we put on someone who needs a tank, who wants foam that won't compress like the Bondi will. It's much more stable than a Bondi. Yeah. The outer sole, though, the foam, like this really soft rubber outer sole of the current one, it doesn't handle – it's not as versatile as what the older trail one was. The older trail one was a lot better on sort of light trails, and it handled the road better. It was more durable. This one here is like – it's almost like they've – had to lighten the shoe somehow, so they use these really soft rubber pods, which I don't particularly love. They also feel a bit slippery on concrete.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
Maybe you've done that one before, Julian, though. You must really love it. Well, for me, because we were talking about the spikes before, I thought I'd go back to a spike that I loved the most. It was the Nike Zoom Kennedy. I'll get a photo up through here. They were released about, I think, 99 or 2000, just after the distance runner from America, Bob Kennedy. But you see how the spikes strategically were placed just medially. They had this sort of, it was like an EVA. It wasn't plastic. Do you see that red webbing in the medial aspect of the foot? That was like an EVA webbing that sort of contoured the longitudinal arch. So it just shaped the foot, but it wasn't dense or like aggressive. The plate was relatively stiff. And the upper was just magic. I reckon the heel counter was actually stiff. That was the only downside to it. So if you had like a Haglund's or something like that, you might have irritated it. But this was one of my favorite running spikes. It was probably in a time or an era where there was, what else was around that time? There was probably the Miler, the Lanang, the Ventureless. What else was out there, Tom?
Oh, yeah.
The Miler and Lanang were really popular, but it was a really cool era of track spikes for sure. This was just an outlier because it looked like a clown shoe.
Cool era, but if you put that shoe on now, I can guarantee you wouldn't like it.
like it's at my parents' house back home. So I'm going to go collect it one day when I head back home and just to whack it on and see what it feels like.
All right, you can wear it for our 3K showdown in November. Let's do it.
November. Yeah, no, I'm going to be wearing the on. No doubt about the on at all. Yeah.
Go on, Tom.
I remember that spike. So it is an ASICS hyperspeed. So if you were to go and put a hyperspeed on now, I'm sure you wouldn't be too excited. But I think that was one of my first racing flats. So I think I was in year 11 at school, maybe year 11. And it was back then the hyperspeed. It just used really low density EVA. Even the outsole was like super low density. So it just made it super lightweight. Pretty flexible, but super light and super soft. So as you can imagine, it was definitely not durable. Like you'd go through the outsole, like within 200K, you'd have like a massive hole, like it's already chewing the midsole. But like while it lasted, it was brilliant. It was just so soft and light, and it was good. Went through a phase of firming up all their midsoles, and probably for durability reasons, but it just it never felt as good as the hyperspeed from like early 2000s.
But you always picked the hyperspeed over the DS Racer, didn't you? The DS Racer was a bit sort of firmer underfoot. I think the cost was, I think it was cheap as well. The hyperspeed was like $100 shoe, and it was a better feeling shoe. And but it's funny now. We talk about, remember when super shoes first got released and the Vaporfly, you only get 200Ks out of them. Like compared to the flats back then in 2000, you literally couldn't get 200Ks out of the rubber of those shoes. Whereas now you can take some of these super shoes out to 3 to 4 times that amount if you really want to.
Exactly. Yeah. So you might pay double, but you're going to get at least double the durability, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Most people in the super shoes. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. I think next time we speak, then we're going to have some shoes sort of released. So the Ultrafly, reckon you get onto a pair of them, Tom, for the for that national park you live near. Same with you, Nitta. Reckon you'll both like that.
I actually am keen to get that. That would be good. Yeah.
Kinvara Pro will come out. Triumph 21 should have that floating around. What else have we got? Maybe coming out soon enough. What else is exciting that's hitting the deck? No, probably nothing in the next month. Maybe we get the Mac X come in.
Nice.
Is Triumph 21 a midsole update, or is it just upper?
No, just upper. So it's not. I'm not crazy. Not crazy about it, but that's me.
You get another release as well of the Super Blast, don't you, Julian?
Super Blast. We're actually getting a few pairs. So a lot of people after that. I chucked it on Strava yesterday, and that's it. That's the one. That looks like a brand new.
It's a sample shoe for the clinic.
Oh, right. Yeah. Look at how good that shoe looks.
It's just amazing, isn't it? Like you hardly want to wear this thing, do you? But it is.
The midsole. Look, that's just the perfect shape, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, they've just got this thing right, haven't they? Like Tom said the other day, it's a little bit almost sad for the Nova Blast. Remember how good the Nova Blast was then? But if you can afford a few extra dollars, it really, you just wear the Super Blast, don't you?
Yeah. So we're going to get stock of it. So get your name and hit us up on Instagram, the running company _Geelong, because that's where we're putting the names and numbers down. And then you might be able to secure a pair for their drop date, which we're looking at, I think, early August, late July looks like the one.
Sounds good. That's exciting.
All
good.
right.
All right, guys. That was good. Better get to work.
See ya.
See you later, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Prepped Adelaide Marathon for sponsoring the show. The Prepped Adelaide Marathon is on again. Register now for the Prepped Marathon, Half Marathon, or the family-friendly Saucony 10K or 5K event. Seize your personal best with Prepped and get ready for the 45th Adelaide Marathon, Sunday, August 27. Register at adelaidemarathon.com.au.